came across a beautiful painting, absolutely gorgeous, an original Emile Groupie, and I haven't come across many of his. It's been several years probably since I last saw one, but I was pretty fired up about that. What's going on in the market right now with Emile Groupie?
Well, Emile Groupie is deceased, but Emile Groupie painted a lot of different subjects. The one he's most known for are marine subjects, boats and waterfronts and that sort of thing. But the other day I ran across an Emile Groupie that was a winter scene set up in the east. And I thought, that can't be Emile Groupie, because, I mean, it went from, this fishing shack, the shrimper boat, and all of a sudden here now I'm plowing through snow and everything up this trail, and it was an Emile Groupie.
Now let me get this straight. Are you sure it was a Groupie? Because I've never seen it.
It was an Emile Groupie. But what happened was that, like a lot of artists, they go through phases in their life where they get bored with what they're doing. And that's what they sometimes refer to as the blue period, the red period, the green period, whatever. And that's to designate that artist did something different than he normally is associated with. And it could even be in the medium, whether it be watercolors, oil, acrylics, or whatever.
Now let me ask you something about that, since that's understandable. That's probably a human reaction. You just want to do something different. Does the market, do they get excited about that because it's so different, or do they go the other direction?
Many times it results in what people consider as betrayal. I buy Emile Groupie paintings because no one does marine paintings like he does. That would be like saying Salvador Dali did a romantic piece in which all the body parts fit. I mean, it just isn't going to happen, right?
Right.
So if you saw one, you'd say, he must have gone wacky or something. Right. So with Emile Groupie, more traditionalists will say, I want to stay with what he does best.
Right. So
and I don't care what period he went through.
Right. So the market really reflects.
Yeah, and a lot of times people will buy a piece of art and they will say, well, is that oil or is that acrylic? Well, that's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell, man.
So the best thing to do is go back and know more about the artist, which you should do anyway before you buy art. And traditionally, an artist will stay in the same medium, but they may change subjects.
Right.
Because a traditionalist painter says, wait a minute, I paint in oils because oils, they dry slowly. So if I'm painting and I change my mind while I'm painting, the oil hasn't dried yet.
You've got time to reverse course.
Yeah, I can take something and clean that oil off, that color, and change it. Acrylic, if an oil painting dries in 4 days, acrylic would dry in 2 hours.
Right.
So whatever you put on that canvas is what you're going to get.
Let me ask you. I mean, you know this much, and I kind of know this much, but working with acrylic versus oil. I mean, have you gotten a sense that aside from a preference, are they similar to work with?
Absolutely. Well, except for the drying period.
Right.
Now, what makes oil an oil-based paint or pigment is the amount of oil that's in it. And acrylic doesn't have oil in it. It's got other ingredients. Now here's what people do. They say, wait a minute, you know what? What's selling? Oil is selling. So they'll take acrylic, which is their standard way to paint, and they'll put oil in it.
Is that right?
And they'll make it more oil-based, even though it has the other ingredients that formulated as acrylic. And in watercolors are, they're all over the map because watercolors go on a piece of paper and it bleeds out, and that's what people like.
Right.
They like to see the pastel colors of a watercolor.
Right.
So it's the way that the artist decides that they want to do their work.
Right.
There's artists that will try to jump around, a lot like writers of books will do. I remember a writer one time, Jeffrey Archer, who wrote these great espionage novels.
Yeah,
great
novels.
And all of a sudden, he wrote a book about cathedral architecture. Robert Ludlum, when he was alive, he wrote all this wonderful spy novels, and he said, I want to write a comedy book. Well, his agent tried to talk him out of it, his publisher tried to talk him out of it, and virtually, if it hadn't been for his name on the book, it wouldn't have gone anyplace. It was his name that sold it.
Right.
Artists do the same thing sometimes.
That's cool.